What's up guys, Josh aka Savage Hydra here, and welcome back to our top N series. Today we're going to be looking at my top 5 personal favourite legendary Pokemon. And this is something I've done that takes into consideration pretty much everything about them. I intentionally left legendaries out of the other top N lists. Purely because I wanted to do a legendary one on its own. So this is going to take into account things like their cries, their design, their battle usability, and the general nostalgia factors and all that they have for me. But of course, disclaimer: these are my personal opinions. I'm not saying that any of these are the best or anything like that. It's just my personal things that are personally good to me in the way that I see them. So we'll get started with number 5, and that is going to be going to Cobalion. Cobalion is one of the Swords of Justice from Generation 5, and Steel Fighting type, the same typing as Lucario. And basically I've chosen him as number 5 because it was really the first legendary trio that wasn't really arbitrary. They weren't like 3 individuals. It's like a group of things with an intended joint goal in a way with Virizion and Terrakion, and then technically Keldeo if you count him. But Cobalion is portrayed as the leader of that trio. And the steel fighting is a really nice typing, and the design is really nice. Considering how much I dislike Lucario, I'm surprised at how much I do like Cobalion, but I don't know, there's something about Cobalion that I do really like. The other reason I like him in a competitive sense is that he can both fulfill a supportive role with defensive spreads, stealth rock, thunder wave, that sort of thing, or you can go with offensive roles with sword stance and iron head, close combat, all that sort of jazz. So he's very versatile, unlike Lucario. Lucario is pretty much how hard do you want to hit and how fragile do you want to be, but Cobalion has some variety to him, which I really like. So yeah, that's why Cobalion's going as my number 5. Onwards to the number 4 pick, and that is going to go to Articuno. Articuno is something that's always stuck with me since Generation 1, and it's been one of my favourite legendaries since back then, in whenever they came out, like 1996 or something, I don't know. But yeah, as one of the original legendaries, it's one that I've always loved. It's design, the cry, the general feel of it is all very appropriate. It just seems very sort of that elegant and graceful kind of idea to it, and visually it just looks like that, the majestic, graceful idea of it with the long flowing tail. Still, it has that kind of herder, bah, I'm a bird sort of thing going on, but yeah, I just really liked Articuno always, far more than Zapdos and Moltres. I always thought Moltres looked kind of silly, to be honest, and Zapdos then was the second for me. But honestly, Articuno is probably the reason why in the early generations I was such a lover of ice types. Before Dark became a thing, and before there were actually a decent amount of Dark types, Ice was probably my favourite type. It was rare. There weren't that many ice types themselves, but things like Lapras, Articuno, and Generation 3 you've got Walrein. They're just, I liked ice types until Dark type kind of came into its full form. So number 4 is going to Articuno. Number 3 is going to be going to Giratina. And that is because it is one of the earliest cases for the use of a set form change, not like an in-battle one like say Cast Form or Meloetta, but an actual give it an item and it changes form. and its stat spreads changes and all that sort of thing. It's an excellent post-game kind of catch Pokemon for Diamond and Pearl, or the main game Legendary for Platinum. It does an excellent job of portraying the idea of a Shadow Dragon in both the original and the origin forms. I mean, this thing has its own dimension. It was sealed away in the distortion world. Like, it's that badass. So, Giratina is something, when I found it in Generation 4, I was like, oh wow, this thing's pretty awesome. And combined with that, Giratina's stat spreads make it probably tied with Lugia for the bulkiest of all Pokemon currently in existence. Excluding any like Mega Evolutions that get super crazy bulky. Giratina, the only thing that probably tops Giratina is probably Lugia due to multi-scale. Without multi-scale, Giratina would probably be the single bulkiest Pokemon out there. And it's quite disgusting how many hits this thing can take. And with Ghost Dragon typing, it has a few weaknesses, yes, but not too many. And it gives it quite a few immunities, like fighting and normal immunity. Giratina's just always been, since Generation 4, something that I have liked. So, Giratina gets number 3. Now, number 2 is going to follow on rather cleanly from number 4, and that's going to be going to Suicune. Suicune pretty much follows the same as Articuno in terms of its aesthetic of looking graceful and majestic, and at the same time it doesn't have that derpy bird look to it. So it's also the first legendary to have its own third addition to a generation and not part of like a mainline trio like, you know, Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza, like Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, and all that sort of thing. It was kind of standalone in its own game as part of a trio, and Pokemon Crystal was always, it has been one of the most memorable Pokemon games to me from my childhood, and Suicune always sticks with me because of that reason. It also seemed to, in the games also, it's one of the legendaries that seemed to have quite a bit of character to it. I don't know how to explain why that thought comes to my head, but I don't know, it's the way that it kind of interacts with you and then runs away, and then interacts with you and then runs away, sort of thing. In Crystal anyway, in Gold and Silver, it's like a roaming legend like Raikou and NTR. But in terms of its competitive use, it's crazy bulky, like 115 in both defenses and then like 90 or 85 HP or something. But combined with just a pure water typing, it makes it a fantastic wall. You can build it like the Calm Mind, the standard Crocoon with Calm Mind, Scold, Rest and Sleep Talk. You can go Icy Wind for VGC, you can go Ice Beam, Scold, and Rest with Chester Berry and Calm Mind. It's not totally versatile, but there's a few things that it can do depending on what role you want it to fulfill in a team. And for a wall, it is pretty versatile. So moving on to our number 1 spot, and anyone that's figured out me by now is probably seen this coming, but my number 1 legendary is going to be going to Dialga. And that is mainly really because just look at that thing. It just looks awesome. I mean, its counterpart Palkia I always thought looked a bit weird, but Dialga just has this presence about it that I really liked. Plus the fact that it literally bends time to its whim. I mean, you got Celebi, sure, Celebi can travel through time, whatever, but Dialga is literally, it created time. It controls time itself. And considering that Roar of Time, if you've ever seen Generation 4's Roar of Time animation, man, that thing was crazy. And that animation, although not as epic in others, has continued to be really crazy good in the games. And to put it simply, Dialga is the title legendary of Pokemon Diamond in Generation 4, which is my favourite generation, and the game that I played for Generation 4. So I don't think there's anything that could really more appropriately take my favorite spot in Legendaries. So, yeah, Dialga. Dragon Steel is also a pretty damn good typing. Really nice. And unique as well, which is something that not a lot of dragons have these days. So, yeah. So to close off, just to recap, for my top 5 favourite legendaries, we have Cobalion at number 5, Articuno at number 4, Giratina at number 3, Suicune at number 2, and our number 1 spot has gone to Dialga as my favourite legendary thus far in the Pokemon series. So, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and if you did enjoy this and want to see more, please do like and subscribe, and also, of course, let me know what your favourite legendaries are in the comments below. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode.